As probably all of you know, it was 100 years ago today that Rudolf Steiner, this great friend of humanity, helper of humanity, leader of humanity, and teacher, laid aside the earthly garment which he had worn this time around. And all around the world, people are seeking the inner relation to this great spirit all day today. And indeed, for years now, of course, but with a greater intensity in recent days. And that affects the atmosphere of humanity. And even though we're now so strangely united and at the same time separated by this electronic medium, our interconnectedness will also have an effect. It is a blessing to know that there are other people who seek the same connection. Better said, who seek connection with this same teacher. And with one another. The title of this evening's contemplation comes from something that Rudolf Steiner wrote on his deathbed, very shortly before he died. He noted this in a notebook of his. It's a kind of a meditation, and it does not, like so many of his meditations, bear any indication as to its purpose, for which circle of people it was intended, or what it was supposed to accomplish. Perhaps it was just something he wrote for himself. It's certainly unusual among all of the many meditative verses that he created, in that he speaks about himself personally. Otherwise, we have the lyrical self, as the literary critics like to call it. I feel, it says in the calendar of the soul. I see, I think, and yet that's not simply Rudolf Steiner personally, that's anyone who's working with that particular verse. Here, it sounds like he's talking about himself. This first line is quoted in the title of this evening, or this day, I would enkindle every man. And the other thing which is quite remarkable about this meditation, he expresses right in the first words a personal preference, a personal wish. I would like to. Ich möchte, it says in German. That is not something you will find in Rudolf Steiner's mantric creations. So maybe it can help us if we begin to seek him now with these words which he himself formed as he approached the threshold of death. Summarizing his whole intention for that entire earthly life and undoubtedly beyond. Rudolf Steiner speaks, I would enkindle every man from out the spirit of the cosmos, that he become a flame and fiery unfold his being's very essence. The others, they would take of the water of the cosmos, what quenches the flames, and watery lähms all being from within. O joy, when man the flame blazes even where it rests. O bitterness, when man the thing is bound where it longs to be active. I don't know if you all are familiar with this already or whether that's digestible if you just hear it read to you cold. But if you couldn't understand it, you have to say something. Otherwise, I'll just roll on and on. In general, feel free to interrupt if something doesn't make sense. All right, so Rudolf Steiner wants to enkindle us with the spirit of the cosmos. And he's aware that there are forces in the world which would like to quench these flames, to put them out, and not exactly with the water of the cosmos, but with something from the water of the cosmos. Rudolf Steiner wanted to help us to become man the flame. And each of us can ask, how much am I man the flame and how much am I man the thing? Obviously, we have portions of each of these two. The flame means I carry my own inner source of warmth and light and change. Wherever there is flame, there's transformation. The flame also means there's death. Death for the sake of transformation. Rudolf Steiner frequently spoke about the need for a new kind of thinking. He was the teacher of a new kind of thinking. He said, people talk a lot about love and goodness. And yes, the world needs love and goodness. But it is really ineffective simply to demand love and goodness. And the comparison he often brought was with an oven. If you have an oven and it's cold, you can't persuade it to be warm by giving it a moral sermon and exhorting it to be warmer. You have to put fuel into your oven. I assume he was talking about a wood-burning oven or a coal-burning oven back in the days. And he said, if you put something in there, then it can burn and then it will become warm. Likewise, if we want to help humanity to become richer in love, it's not very useful to give moral exhortations and tell people to be nice. But if you give them a new way of understanding, a new understanding, and above all, a new way of understanding, that will work indirectly on the life of feeling in such a way that it leaves the life of feeling free, but also gives us a genuine ability to be more loving, a thinking such that it helps the love to grow. That is the task of anthroposophy. I don't know how it is for you, but I have asked myself over the years quite a few times, where would I be if I had not met Rudolf Steiner? Where might I have ended up outwardly in my life? But above all, inwardly, where would I be? It seems to me rather shocking when I try to make it clear to myself what the answer must be to this question. When you start to ponder what a profound help it is to have met Rudolf Steiner, you can only feel a deep, deep gratitude. And one time someone asked him, how can I connect with you when you no longer live on earth? He said, through enthusiasm and love. So this path is available to us. And a great spirit like that wants to connect with people. Of course, only if the people want that themselves freely. During his whole life, he was interested in all of the people he met, no matter how strange they were, no matter how wrong their thoughts were. He took a deep, heartfelt interest. And there's a passage in his autobiography where he says, I tried to visit people inwardly when I met them, but hardly anyone tried to visit me. So I think if we today and at other times as well seek the connection, he will welcome it. There is a danger when we look back at his life that we fix him in the form in which he lived then. Rudolf Steiner is no longer the man with the black silk cravat. But we can, by looking at his past earth life, find something of his essence which goes deeper than the appearance he assumed at that time. We can find that his wish to help us become flames runs throughout all of his activity from the beginning to the end. He chose to live in Central Europe and to try to enkindle there a culture of the I, the self. Self-responsibility. The initiative which people take when they try to create out of their own inmost. This is what he encouraged. He told a story one time. I don't know whether this is a true story. It sounds more like a joke or something, but still it has its wisdom. He said there was once a company of actors and they performed their piece. And they had performed this particular play dozens and dozens of times, many times, and they knew everything forward and backward perfectly. And they always had, as was the custom at that time, a prompter. And the prompter sat in the middle of the stage, below the front of the middle of the stage, hidden from the audience by a little box. So that if an actor ever got stuck, the prompter could look him right in the eye and whisper his line to him. All right, so the director of this company said to his actors, look, we've performed this now 486 times. We could leave aside the prompter's box. And the actors looked for a moment and were silent and puzzled. And then they said, after considering it, but Mr. Director, then the audience would see the prompter if we left away the prompter's box. Of course, the director did not mean that they should leave away the box and have the prompter sitting there in plain view. He meant we don't need a prompter anymore. But the actors were blocked by a preconception that there has to be a prompter. Of course, it's unthinkable not to have a prompter, even though they had long grown past the point where they needed one. As I say, this story may be apocryphal or just something Rudolf Steiner made up, but he was trying to say, we are often blocked by our preconceptions as to what has to be. Unexamined preconceptions are the most powerful because we never even try to question them. It never even occurs to us to question them. Indeed, we don't even notice that we have them. We labor under preconceptions such as there must always be a prompter. And this prevents the culture of self-responsibility. We find this running through Rudolf Steiner's work, from the philosophy of spiritual activity to social threefolding, all the way from beginning to end. The preconception that there has to be some moral code given to us from the outside, some signal from the cosmos or from God or from your guardian angel to tell you how to live, to tell you what to do, to tell you how to make the next decision. It's a preconception which is hard to shake because it's millennia old. And Rudolf Steiner is encouraging us in his very first works, the philosophy of spiritual activity and others, to take responsible for our own thinking and our own willing. Our action will be good if we take it in resonance with our own deeper self and with our deepest understanding of the situation, then it will be good. It will be evil if that is not the case. If we fail to connect with the reality of the situation and fail to connect with who we really are. Radical are such thoughts, such suggestions. And when we come to social threefolding, we find the preconception that, of course, there has to be some kind of power in the world that protects us and takes care of us. This preconception, too, is millennia old. There's some kind of paternalistic state, a central power, the pharaoh or the president or whoever it is. And when something's wrong with the economy, that government is to blame, and that government needs to take care of the economy and make it better. And when something's threatening our health, the government has to take care of it and make it better and protect us. And the government has to take care that all of the people have a warm bed and food to eat, because the government is our substitute parent. It's unthinkable for the mindset which we've lived with for so very long that we ourselves should take responsibility for all of these things. The education of our children, even this, the most precious thing in our lives, we entrust, in many cases without any question, to the government. So these are the things, the centralized, unitary, monolithic state with centralized power over all of the fields of culture and economy, which Rudolf Steiner challenged us to re-examine. If we no longer have a government that guarantees that no one's allowed to fall below a certain poverty line, if we no longer have a government that ensures that we have health care or ensures that the children are educated, then the problem is not yet solved, because then the question is, who will educate the children and take care of our health and the economy and the needs of the poor and all of these other things? If it's not the government, it has to be us. If it's not a centralized power, it has to be man the flame. Individuals and groups of individuals joining forces freely will find the solutions. This is the confidence Rudolf Steiner tried to offer to us. The physicians will know how to organize a way for people to find medical care. The teachers will find a way to form schools without centralized supervision that will genuinely help the children. And the moment the centralized supervision falls away, a great variety of medicine and schools will arise. The people involved in the production and distribution and sale of goods, and consumer organizations as well, will be able to speak together and find solutions for all of the economic problems. What the solutions are, Rudolf Steiner did not reveal in all details. He gave lots of helpful guidelines. He gave lots of helpful guidelines in lots and lots of areas of life. Whenever anyone asked him for help, he said yes. Whenever a group of people asked him for help, could we please renew the entire art of painting? Could we please renew the entire practice of medicine? He said yes. Would you like to hear a list? I made a list. And since no one's saying anything, I'm just going to read it to you. Some of the areas which anthroposophy offers revolutionary new practical advice in are these: understanding the being of man, social threefolding, counter space, a way of turning all of geometry inside out. It's barely begun, but it's remarkably fruitful. Color genesis, understanding how color arises out of the colorless. The nature and evolution of the cosmos, right down into astrophysics. The nature of matter, a whole new phenomenological approach to chemistry is implied. The evolution and essential being of the earth. The threefold human body, embryology, animal specializations, the archetypal plant, evolution, the art of thinking, the nature of the soul, its illness and its healing, its cultivation, its hygiene, reincarnation. Yes, this too, Rudolf Steiner offered a drastic new approach to in comparison with the things which the ancient wisdom cultures of the past had taught. Linguistics, right down to the vexed and central question of the proto-world language, with a drastic new approach to this question. The history of consciousness. Who even talks about that? Mythology, the hierarchies of the spiritual beings, that is a whole new angelology. Architecture, interior design, clothing, jewelry, sculpture, painting out of color, not starting with the line and the contour, but with the color as color, so that the line becomes a secondary effect and the picture is no longer out of a mental representation, but arises by the dynamics of the colors themselves. Graphic design, window engraving, one of several completely new arts which he created. Window engraving, music, poetry, speech formation, public speaking. He gave whole courses in how to speak and practiced it himself. Mystery drama, acting, puppetry, eurythmy, Boatmare gymnastics was actually not developed by Rudolf Steiner, but inspired by his work, with very few consultations and tiny encouragements from Rudolf Steiner by Graf Fritz von Boatmare. Out of this comes spatial dynamics and other things as well. The community of Christians as a movement for the renewal of the religious life. Self-development, how to work on your own inner soul life and transform yourself through all kinds of exercises and practical advice. The care of the old and the dying. He gave lots of practical ideas for that. Raising children, did I mention? School, soul care for those who are in need of special care of the soul, for the handicapped, so-called, and so on. And who isn't handicapped? Medicine, psychiatry, nutrition, pharmacology, eurythmy therapy, law. Yes, there's a very large volume compiling all of the indications he gave about law and the life of rights and the equality of human rights. economics, challenging new ideas on economics, companies, how to organize the workers and the managers and the profits and so on. Biodynamic agriculture, beekeeping, new sources of energy, machines. These and many other things were given to us by Rudolf Steiner as hints that come from the future into the present. They have scarcely been taken up, but where they have been taken up, they've always proved extraordinarily fruitful, even if people only understood what he said to a tiny degree and only tried it out to a tiny degree. And so we see they come from the future and are awaiting the human flames who will take them up and unfold them. In the book, The Philosophy of Spiritual Activity, sometimes called the philosophy of freedom, Rudolf Steiner said in English, freedom can be taken in too external a meaning. This is not only the English language with its suffix dom, but also the Anglo-American culture, which emphasizes external freedom. You're not in jail, and so you're free. Therefore, he's recommended calling his book The Philosophy of Spiritual Activity, meaning inward freeness has to do with how active you are as a flame. And in this book, Rudolf Steiner introduces the notion that man is different from all of the other things in the world. With the other things, we look at them with our senses, hear them, smell them, touch them, etc., and try to understand what they are with our thinking. And when the sensory exploration of an area of the perceptible world around me matches my inner search for the essence of what it is, that is, when my perception matches my thinking, then a recognition takes place, and I can know what it is. For instance, there's something in front of me, there's something, it's large, it has certain color tones, has certain contours, I can feel it, I can touch it, I can even hear something rustling up above. Oh, it's an oak tree. The idea oak tree came from within. The perception, the tactile and visual perceptions and auditory perceptions, and the scent as well, perhaps, came from without. But for the tree itself, its sensory garment and its essence, its identity, are one. The idea of the oak tree is not actually separate from the sensory object in front of me. But for me, they're given separately. The senses deliver the outer surface, and my thinking delivers the inner essence. This is just the epistemological basic process, which Rudolf Steiner described in this book and in other of his early writings. But then, chapter 9 of the philosophy, he says, with man, that's different. Here, the perception which meets our eye and ear is really not united with the inmost essence. That includes yourself. When you look at yourself, you can find that your perceptual side is not united with your truest identity. And here, the task that faces us is different from the task we face when trying to cognize an oak tree or any other thing. We must unite the perception and the concept not cognitively, but by self-actualization on all the levels of our being. It's a deed to unite the perception and the concept of the being of man, to unite genuine essential beingness with my perceptual sheath. I need to activate myself on all levels to carry my higher self into my identity. These are thoughts which are hinted at in seemingly dry philosophical prose in chapter 9 of the book, The Philosophy of Spiritual Activity. Chapter 9 is entitled The Idea of Freeness. And in these paragraphs, 39, 40, where Rudolf Steiner introduces this notion, he says you cannot think the concept man to its end without coming to the idea of freeness. Inner freeness by self-activation, spiritual activity, blazing even where it rests. As I said, the whole book is written in seemingly dry and prosaic philosophical terms, but it's easy enough to see that a thought like this is a description of our humanity as the 10th rank of the hierarchies of the angels. The idea of man cannot be thought to its end, the concept of man, without the idea of freeness. That means we are destined in the cosmos to become the spirits of freeness. There are thrice three angelic ranks, three hierarchies of three different ranks each, and Rudolf Steiner added to their traditional names, which are centuries and millennia old, new terms. He called the one group the spirits of wisdom, the other the spirits of movement, the other the spirits of form, and so on. Us, he called the spirits of freeness. Not yet, but we carry within us a disposition to become the spirits of freeness. That will happen when and to the degree in which we enkindle ourselves from the spirit of the cosmos. Rudolf Steiner would like to help us with that. That's why he came. That's why he gave of himself. He is, in this sense, the teacher of a whole new cosmic generation of spiritual evolution, the ascent from our human state to being the collaborators of the gods. And unlike all of the divine beings above us, to being the spirits of freeness, who do it purely out of our own inner initiative. Rudolf Steiner helps the gods to guide us toward this step. After he had been working in these philosophical books for a while and receiving little resonance from the contemporary culture, he got a request from the Theosophists. Nietzsche had died. Rudolf Steiner had met Nietzsche during the time when Nietzsche was unable to use the instrument of his body, and yet was still alive. He had beheld the deeper being of Nietzsche and written a book to allow Nietzsche to speak in the time when he could not speak outwardly. It's one of the first books about Nietzsche at all, written 5 years before Nietzsche died, 1895. And when Nietzsche died in 1900, Rudolf Steiner was suddenly called for everywhere to speak about Nietzsche because he was a great expert. And one of the groups that wanted him to tell them about Nietzsche was the Theosophists. They were interested in all kinds of things. Rudolf Steiner thought the Theosophists were pretty weird, but he went there anyway because he always said yes when someone asked for help. And they noticed right away that he had a whole different kind of depth. They did have a sensitivity for such things, these early Theosophists, and a reverence. And they said, come back next week and speak again to us about a topic of your own choosing. And he spoke about Goethe's tale, because all the people who prepared to found the anthroposophical movement on earth had been at the supersensory ritual under the guidance of the archangel Michael, of which this tale that Goethe wrote about the sacrifice of the beautiful green snake is an inkling. And so this tale reminds people of where they were before they were born and what they really set out to do. And Rudolf Steiner spoke for the first time directly esoterically. So he says in his autobiography to these Theosophists, that is Michaelmas 1900. And now they said, you are our teacher. And they put him in charge of the whole German section and the esoteric school, which they also had. So we must be grateful that they recognized him when the rest of the world was still asleep. And he connected with this strange world of theosophy and ultimately had to leave because there were insurmountable differences. But when he first started on this path, he wrote a letter to one of the other leading figures in the German Theosophical movement, Wilhelm Hübschleiden, a letter of the 16th of August, 1902, in which Rudolf Steiner said, I will build on the force that makes it possible for me to bring students of the spirit onto the path of development. That alone is what my deed of inauguration will have to mean. Here we see Rudolf Steiner, as always, uttering his deepest intention to bring students of the spirit onto the path of development, to help us enkindle our flame. That's why he became their teacher, our teacher. It's one thing to teach a subject in a school or university of the ordinary kind. That is already a sacred and profound responsibility. But to help teach people how to develop their deepest being out of an esoteric awareness of the spiritual nature of man, that is, to be a teacher of occult development, is a whole different level. It means that you take responsibility for your students in a much more committed way, even than a kindergarten teacher would do. While respecting their freedom as self-responsible beings or beings trying to learn self-responsibility. And there's a characteristic remark about this, which Rudolf Steiner wrote in the fine print. Sometimes the deepest things are in the fine print, the footnotes, appendices, preface to the 16th to 25th edition, and all of these things, which he sticks at the bottom or the edge or the end of his book, or the beginning. And the one book, Knowledge of the Higher Worlds, How Is It Attained? Part 1, all of the editions during his lifetime said Part 1 on the title page, has a passage at the end, among the additional remarks at the end, where Rudolf Steiner says, yes, once you get to a certain level in your self-development, you need a personal teacher. On the other hand, if you have this book in your hands, you have a personal teacher. That's quite remarkable. I'll just read you the sentence in question, the two sentences. Take a book like this one as a conversation that the author is having with the reader. When it is said that the esoteric student needs personal guidance, conceive it this way. The book itself is that personal guidance. All right, but this means that by reading his book of self-development and schooling for the path of the inner life, we actually become his personal students. And this in turn means that he takes on a solemn responsibility to help us wherever we have a justified need for this help. A passage from the mystery drama can confirm what is meant here. In the mystery drama, the characters have a certain similarity with people in the physical world, although no one character is quite identical. But one of the characters in the mystery drama is a great teacher of humanity who says never a word without earnest necessity to speak, and otherwise keeps silent, and who always appears at just the right moment with just the right helpful word. This character is called Benedictus, and he does bear a certain resemblance to Rudolf Steiner. There's a passage in the third mystery drama, The Guardian of the Threshold, in scene 6, where Benedictus says, I must accompany everyone who in earthly existence has received from me the light of spirit, whether he devoted himself knowingly or only unconsciously as student of the spirit to me, and must escort him further on the pathways he has set out on in spirit through me. When we set out on these pathways in spirit through the assistance of Rudolf Steiner, and that includes his written work, it includes at least his written work, then he takes upon himself to accompany us. These words are spoken not on earth in this scene of the drama. Scene 6 is in one of the supersensory regions. So you begin to divine just how great the scope of this responsibility is. Rudolf Steiner remains connected with those who, through him, begin to find this path. That also means that he has to suffer through all of the nonsense, which of course we also bring along. In the Theosophical Society, as I hinted, not all was as it should be. In the Anthroposophical Society, during Rudolf Steiner's lifetime, not all was as it should be. And before we get indignant about all of those people back then, we could also ask ourselves how we are doing and what it is that Rudolf Steiner is being asked to accompany. He worked freely when he was writing those philosophical works and working as a magazine editor, writing articles. He thought about becoming a professor. He became partly unfree when he joined the Theosophical Society to be their teacher. And then when the Anthroposophical Society emerged out of the Theosophical Society, he wasn't even a member of the Anthroposophical Society, but he was their teacher. And so he was, to a great degree, also dependent on those people. I don't mean so much financially, that too, but inwardly, subject to the health or unhealth of their development. Then, after the disaster with the building when it burned, he said, we have to look at this as a sign of our own inner weakness as a movement. He didn't point the finger to external enemies. Once or twice he made a tiny hint about that, but mainly encouraged us to look inward and answered this deed of hatred with a deed of love and refounded the Anthroposophical Society after seriously considering a withdrawal with a few of his most advanced students to where they could work undisturbed in some kind of cloister-like retreat. Instead, he joined anew with the Anthroposophical Society, only now he became the president of the society. So actually, this means even less freedom than he had before. Because now he has to take responsibility. And he had to take responsibility in front of a court of law if some member of the society slandered one of the opponents by overzealously responding, which did happen once. Rudolf Steiner paid the fine personally just to show his relationship to the organization that he had connected himself with existentially. He said the Anthroposophical Society and the Anthroposophical movement become one. And he himself, by taking on the presidency of the Executive Council, guaranteed the oneness of this movement with this society. The Anthroposophical movement meaning the spiritual cultural movement on earth. The society meaning the outer form. This, as I say, is a sacrifice. And once or twice he allowed us a glimpse of what that meant for him. There is a passage in an address he gave in memory of Edith Marion, the sculptress who helped to create the statue of the representative of humanity, among other things. She was so connected with the Goetheanum building that she died after it burned down. She didn't last much longer on the earth. And on the 3rd of May, 1924, Rudolf Steiner spoke an address in memory of her, and in the course of some other remarks which come up in this address, he says the following about his responsibility for the society. He says, this leadership, meaning his position as president of the Anthroposophical Society, this leadership, what does it bring about then? This leadership brings about the following. And especially since the Christmas meeting, I have often had to point out the very special circumstance that this leadership of the Anthroposophical movement brings about. It brings it about that I myself am in the position of bearing up into the spiritual world what happens in connection with me, in order to fulfill a responsibility, not only regarding something here on the physical plane, but a responsibility that does indeed rise into the spiritual worlds. And you see, if you want to join in the right sense, especially to join in with what the Anthroposophical movement has become since the Christmas meeting, you do have to find your way into this thought, what it means to answer before the spiritual world for the Anthroposophical movement. I could speak much about this topic, and I would like to say the one thing of the many on this occasion in particular. Naturally, with the people in the Anthroposophical movement, manifold personal things come to expression. What is stood up for on earth as something personal is, when it mixes with what is to happen for precisely the anthroposophical cause, an element which, if it remains personal, cannot be answered for in the face of the spiritual world. And what difficulties arise for him who has to stand up in responsibility for any cause before the spiritual world, when, along with what he has to answer for, he sometimes has to bring along what comes from the personal aspirations of the participating people. what that causes, you should, after all, be a little bit aware of too. It causes the most horrific backlashes from the spiritual world. When one has to step before the spiritual world in the following manner. Some person contributes to the work in the anthroposophical movement. He works. But into the work he does, he works in personal ambitions, personal intentions, personal qualities. So then one has these personal ambitions, these personal tendencies. Most do not know that they are personal. Most hold what they do to be impersonal because they deceive themselves about the personal and the impersonal. That then has to be taken along. And in really the most horrific backlashes out of the spiritual world, that works upon him who has to carry along into the spiritual world these things that well forth from the personalities. Yes, dear friends, Rudolf Steiner was familiar with the joy which can be felt when man the flame blazes even where it rests. And he also had to taste the bitterness which comes about when man the thing takes on a passive attitude, allows himself to rest upon the consciousness and the labor of the others. And it is part of his willingness to sacrifice that enabled him to endure all of this and to endure the backlashes from the spiritual world on our behalf. That is, we may be all the more grateful because he didn't enter into this position naively. It was a decision out of his love for his students to stay connected with us. For his own personal development, he could have gone and done something quite different. The other side of this is that death does not signify the end of his connection with us, the end of his willingness to help us. Just one example among others is an assurance he gave to the priests who founded the movement for the renewal of the religious life. At the founding of the Christian community, should really be called the Community of Christians, 1922 in September, Rudolf Steiner said on the last day they were together, usually a couple of times for long hours every day, for 2 weeks, and more than 2 weeks. And on the last day, almost his very last words were these: take along the assurance that my thoughts will always accompany you, and that where you need help in the right sense, you will always find me ready for this help. It would be one thing if someone said that out of the ordinary consciousness that we have in everyday life, and it's another thing when someone with the consciousness of Rudolf Steiner says that. There's always, which he says twice in this passage. My thoughts will always accompany you. And where you need help in the right sense, you will always find me ready for this help. Rudolf Steiner takes on a responsibility not only to the founding priests of the community of Christians, but to those teachers of the school that he helped to found for the children, after which so many schools are named nowadays. And to the physicians, and to the farmers and gardeners, and to all of his students. And in the words of the mystery drama, to those students who knowingly or unconsciously entered on the path of spirit through Rudolf Steiner. And indeed, he took on a sacrificial offering, brought a sacrificial offering to humanity as a whole by helping us to enter into our cosmic destiny as the future spirits of freeness. Self-responsibility, the initiative to help one another freely, with moral fantasy, to create new forms of collaboration. Self-responsibility, the capacity to work on ourselves individually, which, after all, is the essential motif of any human biography, the changes which we give to ourselves, however seemingly insignificant. This was Rudolf Steiner's interest, and this was his gift. And this is why, no doubt, so many people around the world are currently seeking the connection with him. Probably we have only a very faint and inadequate notion of who he really is and what depths his being spans. Present company accepted. I get the impression I have an inadequate awareness of that. And yet, even an inadequate awareness when joined with an open questioning and search, can be a strong connection with any human spirit, and also with this great human spirit. Yes, the gratitude and the affirmation of the challenge to become a flame. That's approximately what he might have meant when he said we can connect with him by enthusiasm and love. All right, I think that it would be good to close with those words which he spoke, which I spoke at the beginning, from which the title of this presentation is taken. Words written on his deathbed in 1925. I would enkindle every man from out the spirit of the cosmos, that he become a flame, and fiery unfold his being's very essence. The others, they would take of the water of the cosmos, what quenches the flames, and watery lames all being from within. O joy, when man the flame blazes even where it rests. O bitterness, when man the thing is bound where it longs to be active. Maybe that's enough to help us and encourage us in our search for connectedness with Rudolf Steiner. And one of the joys is that it gives us a different connectedness to one another as well, because he's not the guru who makes you unfree with dogma, but makes you actually freer. Therefore, it's such a joy to meet another anthroposophist, another friend of Rudolf Steiner. You go through the world and see so many people of all different walks of life. And then once in a while, you meet someone who has a conscious relation to Rudolf Steiner. And maybe instead of first examining whether he has the right attitude toward the controversial issues of the anthroposophical society and whether he's an adherent of Marie Steiner or Ita Weichmann or some other group, and whether he has the wrong impression about certain doctrines, maybe you could try just total enthusiasm and joy that you met another person who's interested in Rudolf Steiner. It's such a blessing and a gift. And all the more so to see, at least in a tiny digital thumbnail, that there are actually people out there thinking about these things together with us tonight, this evening, this morning. Whoa, we've got an Australian there. I don't even want to know what time it is there. All around the world. Thank you for joining in this connectedness. Thank you for your kind support. And special thanks to Victoria for organizing this and initiating this and having the idea that it would be worth doing something on this particular day.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And thank you all for joining us.
I'm only now starting to read the chat. I'm sorry, I didn't really have the consciousness to follow that simultaneously. So probably there were critical things that needed to be dealt with or said, and I didn't see them. To share the words, I will share the words in case anyone wants those words. Here it is. Okay, there's this verse in German. The exclamation mark is mine because I think this I would is so remarkable. There's the words in English. I read lots of other words too, but I assume you mean this verse, right? What else does it say here? Oh, there's a Spanish version. Tatiana posted it in Spanish. Look at that. Encender. School for Uncovering the Voice. Ah, that's probably one of the things I left out in my list, isn't it? School for Uncovering the Voice, yeah. Actually, Sverdström developed that pretty much by herself. But Rudolf Steiner gave her a tiny bit of encouragement. I mean, a lot of encouragement. But that's her creation. But yes, that comes from anthroposophy as well. Sverdström Verbeck, as she called herself, usually known as Verbeck or Verbeck Sverdström. Valborg Sverdström. What else is in the chat? I'm sorry, I'm just rereading what all I missed. Okay, I think there's probably no other major issues here. Copy of the list. Yeah, I have a copy of the list. That list, as I say, is incomplete. I will copy that. Can I copy all? There you go. It's only about 50 things. School of Uncovering the Voice is missing. Muchas gracias a ti, Celia. All right. Is that good?
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's very, very good. Thank you for someone saying in the chat that you enkindle their soul. Then, yes, many of us feel like that. And I just want to make an announcement for the people who has having trouble making the contribution through PayPal. Yes, we will try to find an alternative. Then I will email the person who wrote me or send a note in the form.
Robin says she can't capture and share and copy the chat. I'm sorry. Okay, if you want those things that I just entered and you can't manage to copy them out of the chat, please write me an email. I will put my email address in there. And then I'll send you whatever you want me to send you. And then we can be in touch. There's my email address. You'll find me on the internet as well, in case you probably can't copy this address either. So either you have to type it perfectly or you have to find me on the internet, which you can.
But your email is in the registration form, Daniel. And
Okay,
if
so then you all
everyone,
have my
yeah.
email in the registration form, and then just write to me and tell me that you couldn't get a copy of the verse or the list of fields of human endeavor or whatever else you want a copy of, and I'll send it to you.
Yes, and someone is asking in the chat also if we are going to send the recording. If you want the recording, just write me and I will send it to you. And my email
I want a
also.
recording. You're not going to post it on your channel?
I can post it if you allow me.
Yeah.
Okay, then I will
If you want to,
post it.
just post it on YouTube. Do you all know Victoria's channel? Is that in the registration form as well?
No, but I can write it down. It's Sun Garden W. I can write it down. You just Google it. Garden
Sun
W
Garden W, all written together. It's a YouTube channel.
in YouTube. Yes. And also you will find then some other talks from Daniel there. If those, and I send the YouTube, Daniel also has a YouTube channel. And in that channel also there is a video about his project for those who have young people around who may be interested also, you can check it out. The video in Daniel's YouTube channel is also in the website. It is in English, it's in German, but you can activate the caption and translate it in any of your language. And it's not a perfect translation, but you can understand a lot of his initiative. Okay, Daniel, does anyone has a question, or I'm not sure if you want to open 10 minutes for question or we just close now? What would you prefer, Daniel?
They don't have any questions. Everything was perfectly clear.
No, but no. We haven't asked them, Daniel. You see, there are two hands. Are you willing to take the question that we
Okay,
have, Daniel?
okay.
Okay, then
Sure I am.
thank you. Rebecca, I will unmute you, then you can ask your question. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi, Daniel. I've been thinking a lot about the fact that Rudolf Steiner's first incarnation is Ea Boni, that it says that he was created out of clay or dirt, just like Adam was. Have you given any thought to this? And if so, I'd be deeply interested in your thoughts. For me, it's quite profound looking at his first incarnation on the earth.
Hi, Becky.
Hi.
I think all of those things are imaginative language in the Epic of Gilgamesh. It means he was connected with the beings of nature, and he's described as something like a wild man who runs around outside. It was his first incarnation, very late, returning from the planetary spheres, a young soul. And only in the course of this incarnation did he gradually enter into contact with human civilization. He brought rich wisdom from the cosmos. or let's say experience from the cosmos, and had to find his way into the experiences on Earth. In the autobiography, Rudolf Steiner says it took him a while to figure out the sense world. The spiritual world was completely clear to him. And that's no longer his first incarnation. Yeah, go ahead, Becky. Did you want to say something? You're muted.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. So would you say that that's true for Adam as well? Or would you say that that's a completely different quality, with Adam being said that when he, falls from the spiritual worlds and he's being described as being made from dirt as well. Would you say that that's also true for the depiction of Adam as well? They're the only two I've ever heard this about. So
yes. And I'm not sure the language of Genesis is the same as the language of the Gilgamesh epic, but maybe we can say it's true of us all. We're clothed in earthly matter when we incarnate. With Adam, that was a new cosmic step.
I mean, another way I've looked at it is these two aspects. Oh, I'm sorry. Could I, the one way that I looked at it is both of them bring wisdom, right? Because Adam, when he falls, he eats from the tree of knowledge. However, one has more of a desire nature to it. Rudolf Steiner's wisdom that he brings has more of a selfless quality, which we would align with the youthfulness of like the Nathan soul quality, this selflessness of serving a higher wisdom, of the Sophionic wisdom coming through Rudolf Steiner, but both have this kind of quality. So I thought that's interesting that they both have wisdom, but one was created out of the fall through desire, right? The desire to know what you're working with, quest. When Eve asks him to eat of the fruit, but Rudolf Steiner comes in with this wisdom as a gift from the gods to help Gilgamesh understand what Gilgamesh's task is, because he couldn't quite understand what the gods were trying to convey to him. So he's bringing this wisdom, but in a totally selfless way, just like you described how he has served us. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. There are other differences as well.
Thank you, Becky.
The two are different. But yes, we all take on a garment of earthly matter when we incarnate. And for Adam, that's a new stage in general human evolution, that the spiritual being is clothed in material substance at all. That's new not only for him personally, but for all of us. For Eabani, it's new for him personally. You're muted again, but I saw your mouth move and your head nod.
Okay.
I'm trying to find you, Becca. You want to say something else, but I cannot see you. Sebastian, can you help me to unmute Becky? She wants to say something else, please.
I'm good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you elaborating a little bit more. So thank you.
Thank you for your question also. Thank you, Daniel. Now, Andrew, do you have any question? Andrew is rowing the chat like you forgot mistaking the list as well. That's a very important comment, Andrew. Thank you.
Well, I've had a lot of experience with Zoom meetings, and also I'm trying to help you out with some of those additions. But thank you, Daniel. They're always wonderful. I love listening to what you have to say. But for Becky, who was just asking, it might be helpful to suggest that in the time of Adam and Eve, we were androgynous beings. And all during Lemuria, we are moving through from being spiritual beings in the etheric realm to becoming beings in the physical. So at one point, we're air beings, and then we're like jellyfish in the watery. And it's not till the middle of the Atlantean epoch that we are able to have a form that can stand up on what was just becoming then solid ground. And so that might be helpful, Becky. I saw you shaking your head. Yes, you know about that. So that's good. But Daniel, thank you. This whole question of, shall we say, invoking, and I just loved what you brought. I just want to sort of underscore that what Steiner, I think, brought is a sort of end to invoking, because when we try to invoke spiritual beings, our personal element is there. And then as you brought this, the spiritual world brings a kind of divine wrath in its response to such invokings that have this personal element in them. So I wanted to thank you for bringing that. I don't know if you have anything more. You didn't use the word invoke, but that's how I took it.
Thank you, Andrew. Leon, do you have a question? And I saw Helen, your hand. Then after Leon, you can speak, okay?
Gosh, so much there, so profound. Thank you. When I first came across this statement of Steiner's, I thought of two things. In English literature, George Bernard Shaw, in his play Man and Superman, had a similar statement, which is very inspiring. To summarize it, it says, "Life is no brief candle for me. It is a mighty flame, which I wish to have burned up by the time I die." And I had friends that said on their tombstone they wanted to have burned up listed. And I worked with this group with Werner Erhard, which is now the landmark company with the forum, which works on the kind of problems we have with what they call blind spots, what we don't know, which you began with. And it's much misunderstood in Europe because it's coaching rather than regular teaching. The other thing I thought of was Jesus Christ. In the Bible, he talks about the lukewarm, the people he spits out. It's very, very serious, the way it's presented there. And finally, the thing you raised at the end, how we deal with Rudolf Steiner in the present. We have to realize that he has evolved. He's not the Rudolf Steiner, as you mentioned, that was active 100 years ago. And so I have placed questions to him now about those issues that some people bring up, the racial issues and others, and I've gotten answers. So I suggest people do enter into dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. Robin. Oh, sorry. Helen, and then will be your turn, Robin.
Okay. Can you understand me? Or can
Yes.
you? Okay, thank you. At first, I like to thank you for this beautiful presentation. It moves me deeply what you had to tell us. And my question is, you mentioned from the philosophy of freedom, to have reality down here on earth, we have to put our concept with the object, with the percept, and that gives us reality. Now, my question is, you mentioned in men, it is completely different. And could you please repeat what is different in men? Did I make
Yes,
myself clear?
I think I understand. This is something that Rudolf Steiner brings up in the philosophy of spiritual activity, Philosophie der Freiheit, chapter 9, paragraphs 39 and 40. He says, with all of the other things, the concept and the perception are not actually separate. They're separate for us, and we have to reconnect the two to understand what we're looking at. But with man, they're actually separate. And we have to unite them not by cognitive work, but by life work. I am not, in my outer perceptible surface, identical with my deeper reality. And that's not just a cognitive issue, that's a will issue. I have to connect the two by actual work.
Mhm.
To become more and more the picture of who I really am. To let who I am really speak through me and shine through me and move through my deeds and my words.
Thank you so much. I will read chapter 9 again. Thank you.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome.
Thank you, Helen. Robin, go ahead, please.
Thank you all. So Daniel, I mean, I go back. We've been given over time the example of what happens when things don't go as Steiner had hoped they would go, particularly when he took on the karma of the whole society there at the refounding of the society at the Christmas conference. And where there is that expectation, even with the teacher being with us, that we have all of our own things to do. And the challenge I see today, and you hear more and more of this about some of the initiatives that are putting disclaimers and little footnotes on their websites and other places about how they do or don't associate with Rudolf Steiner, or how they're not in agreement with certain things. It's, this is a challenge in today's world. And if we truly want to make a difference, and what you said in the beginning, we can't depend upon the teacher, the government, the spiritual world to do this for us. We have to do I'm going to call it the heavy lifting. Each of us, every little bit counts. And it starts with all of the initiatives coming today. What do we take from what you just brought and reminded us just as the teacher tries to remind us in his works, his writings, what happened from the beginning till the very end. It's amazing, and I'm very grateful that you brought those reminders to us again. And hopefully those flames will get the, like me, I have a hard time sometimes lighting a match because it just doesn't want to light for me. So how do we find the right way to light those matches
Yes.
so that our flame can truly start to burn each and every day? And none of us are perfect. We know that. But keep relighting those matches and don't make excuses. God bless you, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Robin. God bless.
Okay, thank you so much, Robin, and thank you, everyone. I think it's a good place to close our gathering. I wanted to thank Daniel, of course, and I wanted to thank many friends who helped me to spread the word. And yes, it was very helpful, like Susan Loss in the Christian community in Toronto, and Andre Onegin shared also the information with their friends in Chicago. And Sue Pete also shared it with the friends in London. Nigel Lamson also shared it with the friends in London and his Christian community. And Lori with her friends, and Barbara with the Friends of Quebec, and Gail with the Friends of Atlanta, and David with some friend of him, and many others who helped to spread the word. And I truly appreciate that. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Richard has, I will unmute you, Richard, and then we will close.
Hi, did you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But now I don't hear you. Now you're muted again.
I'm finished. That's all I wanted to say.
We
Sorry,
didn't
you were
hear you,
muted
Ron.
through that whole time. Say it again, please.
I said it's better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. So even if we're having trouble with the matches, we go on. That's the important thing.
Okay.
Very wise word. Okay, dear friends, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Daniel. Bye, everyone. You can say bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I will open all the microphones and you can say bye to Daniel if you want. Sorry, the Zoom has new things here and I am still a little bit lost because change all the places. Okay, people can unmute now if you want to say bye to Daniel.
Bye, Daniel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel, thank
you
you.
very much.
Daniel, take care.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Very good.
Goodbye, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. God bless.
Okay, so Punky, I don't know what happened, but whoever.
Victoria.
Good night, good morning, good day.
Victoria,
Bye.
thank you for putting this together. This was very special. Do appreciate
Yes.
Thank you to Daniel for being willing to offer it like this.
Two flames got lit and they blaze in front of us and give us the example. Perfect.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Daniel.
Bye. Thank you,
Goodbye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian, for helping me, as always.
Yes.
Bye, friends. I will close the Zoom now.